The interesting thing about the Pythagorean theorem is that the Pythagorean theorem has a definitive pattern to it. Obviously, a squared plus b squared is equal to c squared, but it also has other patterns where if you have a couple of arbitrary values, that if we manipulate those arbitrary values, we could generate a Pythagorean triple. So that also has a pattern to it. And that pattern is that if you have some arbitrary value, we'll label it m, and as long as m is greater than another arbitrary value, and we just label it as n. So if we have these two arbitrary values, then we could develop a Pythagorean triple because of this pattern. That pattern is that if we have side or leg A, that would have to be equal to 2 times mn. And then leg B, that's going to have to be equal to m squared minus n squared. And the hypotenuse C, that's going to be equal to m squared plus n squared. So I'm just going to draw a right triangle here. Here's our right angle. I'll label this as A, leg B, and then of course here's our hypotenuse. So if we're given two arbitrary numbers, and of course for this example it says 13 and 8. Now 13 and 8 are not any side lengths. They're just randomly selected values. But we can use those values to help generate a Pythagorean triple given this pattern here. So m is 13, so then side A has got to be A is equal to 2 times m, which is 13, times n, which is 8. 2 times 13 times 8, that's 208. So this would be 208. Leg B, that's going to be m squared, that's 13 squared, minus n squared, that's going to be 8 squared. 13 squared is 169. 8 squared is 64. 169 minus 64 is 105. So this leg would be 105. If this is a right triangle, this leg, if leg A is 208, leg B is 105, what must this be? Well, we could certainly use the Pythagorean theorem to determine that, but we could also use this pattern also. So this says C is going to be equal to m squared, which would be 13 squared, plus n squared, that'll be 8 squared. That's 169 plus 64. That's equal to 233. So that's what our hypotenuse should come out to be. Now we can use the Pythagorean theorem to check to see if this is true. And of course, the Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared should equal to c squared. A, that's 208, that's 208 squared, plus b squared, that's 105, that's 105 squared. That should be equal to c squared, 233 squared. 208 squared, that's 43,264. 105 squared, that's 11,025. 43,264 plus 11,025, that's 54,289. And 233 squared is indeed equal to 54,289. So we generated a Pythagorean triple with two arbitrary numbers and using this pattern.